Good morning and welcome to Football League World TV. We've got a debate show to bring you this morning. We'll be talking all things Blackburn Rovers. My name is Samuel, the Chief Editor of Football League World.co.uk, and I'm joined by my colleague Toby Wilding and resident Blackburn fan here on the website. How you getting on, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. Brilliant, really. Weather's good. I'm finally out of self-isolation. We're talking about Blackburn getting promoted. Things couldn't be much better for me at the minute, really.
What more could you want on this Thursday morning for sure? We are broadcasting live on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. The main topic of this debate is, can Blackburn Rovers get automatic promotion this season? It's been a really, really strong season for Tony Mowbray's side in the Sky Bet Championship so far this season. They sit third place as we speak right now. Please do send in your comments. We'll get them up during the show, and myself and Toby will run through them. So make sure, get yourself in the live chat on YouTube. But let's get straight into it. So, Toby, as we've already touched on so far in this show, it's been a really strong start for Tony Mowbray's side this season. Currently sitting third position right now and have a genuine chance of promotion to the Premier League this season, you do feel. Let's rewind back to the start of the season. I think it's fair to say there was a bit of uncertainty revolving around Blackburn over the summer. Question marks over Tony Mowbray's, time in charge as boss. Question marks over the business that was done over the summer. Do you think? What were your expectations, I suppose, heading into this season?
Yeah, I think to be honest, I was really looking at mid-table at best for Blackburn this season, as you mentioned there. You look back towards the end of last season. Rovers ended last campaign with just the 4 wins in 20 league games. So obviously, there's no sort of getting away from that. That is really relegation form if you were going to put that over the course of a whole season. And then obviously the big concerns around the transfer window. There was obviously the headline being the departure of Adam Armstrong after his 28 goal season last year, and sort of the failure to bring in another striker to replace him. But I think beyond that as well, there were other concerns from that transfer window that I think Blackburn fans will have taken away, really. Obviously, we saw sort of Harvey Elliott's loan came to an end. He was a massive influence last season. There were other players who departed following the end of their loan spells. The likes of Taylor Harwood-Bellis was brilliant at centre-back second half of the season when he came in from Manchester City. Barry Douglas was another pretty consistent performer at left-back. And there was a lot of experience that went as well out of that side. The likes of Corey Evans, Lewis Holtby, and Tom Tribal was another loanee. So there was a lot moved on from that side, and it was only really a small handful of players that we saw brought in to replace them. So that combination of the poor form at the end of last season and sort of the loss of a top scorer and no replacement coming in for him, and then a drop in really the squad depth with more going out than were coming in, just sort of there was understandably, I think, quite a lot of concern about what Rovers would actually be managing to do this season, and that it wasn't really a huge surprise to see quite a fair few sort of media outlets in the pre-season previews sort of tipping Rovers as a side to be battling relegation this season.
Yeah, I think they certainly defied expectations thus far this season. Let's touch on the season so far now. So, as we've touched on, Blackburn currently third in the Sky Bet Championship table, 2 points off Fulham, who currently occupy second place. I'll ask you this question, Toby. Are you surprised to see Blackburn where they are right now in the table, or not, given the manner of some of the performances you've displayed this season?
I think there is a surprise. I think sort of from early on in the season, people start to realise actually perhaps with the way that Tony Mowbray has got this side playing and the way that they are grinding out the results, I think, sort of that very quickly put to bed any of those sort of fears about some sort of possible relegation battle. But I don't think many expected it to be quite as good as it has been, particularly if, and I'm sure we'll touch on it a bit more in a bit, after the 7-0 defeat against Fulham. I think that at that point, any sort of real playoff push looked a long way away at that point, because of sort of the gulf that seemed to highlight there was between Rovers and those sides who were really pushing for a place in the Premier League for next season. So in that sense, I think there's that Rovers have certainly taken a lot of teams by surprise with the way that they've really stepped on, not least since that defeat to Fulham.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on that defeat then. I know how it feels. I'm a Reading FC fan, and as many of you will know, we lost 7-0 to Fulham this week as well. I mean, it really was a changing point in the season for Blackburn. They seemed to, it was a dreadful display, wasn't it, from Rovers against Fulham that midweek evening. But since then, it's 9 games unbeaten now in the Championship. You've risen to 3rd in the table. I mean, what has been the secret to this success? What do you think Tony Mowbray has galvanised this team to produce these sort of results? I mean, how do you think he's done it?
I mean, I think it's been sort of the response from him to that sort of Fulham defeat has, as it's turned out, been pretty much spot on. I mean, I was at that game, and it was a surreal experience. Nothing like anything I'd ever seen before from a Blackburn team. It was almost out of body to an extent watching it. And I remember sort of reading his comments the next day, and I was sort of surprised by the sort of calmness there seemed to be to them. But he sort of got that spot on. And I mean, when you sort of take that result in isolation, you look at Fulham came into that game off the back of taking West Brom apart 3-0 the weekend before. And West Brom at that point had been the only team to beat Blackburn at Ewood Park that season. So I think there was always a risk that something like that would happen, especially when you consider the Jan-Paul van Heck red card so early in the match as well for Rovers. And I think as well what Fulham really showed, going back to earlier this week with what they did at Reading, is that they are a side who can do that to the vast majority of teams in the Championship. So it was almost to some extent what Mowbray has done is put that down to Fulham's quality rather than Rovers' deficiencies, and he's been able through that to really sort of keep this squad's belief together and focus them and show to them that they are still capable of beating a lot of teams in this division and competing for that top 6 spot. And that is really what we're seeing shining through now. And I think as well another important factor was sort of the response on the pitch and in the stands. Just a few days after that Fulham debacle, Sheffield United, the side who came to Ewood, and they took the lead very early on in that game. It was an absolutely stunning goal from Ryan Brewster. And at that point, off the back of what had happened in midweek, you sort of feared that Rovers were on the brink of a capitulation there. But, that the squad really pulled together. The fans in the stand got behind them, and you really sort of saw that lift them. And the fact that they were able to bounce back so quickly, both in the sense of that game and to the result in midweek against Fulham with a 3-1 win against a side who, even though they were struggling under Jokanovic at that point, I still think with the quality of players that squad has, any team who beats Sheffield United this season are taking a bit of a scalp. So I think that result as well was a massive one for Rovers in terms of really reacting quickly to that Fulham defeat and showing that they are still a match for any side in this league.
Yeah, it really was the perfect response to go and pick up a victory against Sheffield United at home after that Fulham debacle, for sure. It almost acted like a Kickstarter, you feel, for this run of form. As we mentioned, 9 games unbeaten since that Fulham result. Are there any games and results from within that 9-game streak that really stand out to you? Because for me, that 2-0 win away at Bournemouth really, really stood out for me. A fantastic display and perhaps a statement of intent to the league that Blackburn mean business this season in the promotion race. And also that 1-0 victory away at Stoke stood out for me as well. We know the Bet365 Stadium can be a tough place to go for any team in the second tier, but Blackburn produced a good win there. Toby, what stands out for you in this 9-game streak we've had?
Yeah, definitely those two do, because as we were sort of mentioning off air before we came on to talk about this, Blackburn's away form has not been as strong as their home form this season. So to go there to 2 promotion playoff contenders and get those wins there will have been a massive boost psychologically for them in terms of showing what they can do on the road as well as at home against those sides. I think another one that probably stands out for me, if I was going to go for one away from that, is probably the 1-0 derby win over Preston at Ewood Park. because obviously stakes are always high in a game like that. I mean, I think obviously with Burnley being in the Premier League, that is probably the biggest inter-championship rivalry that Rovers have at the minute. So there was always going to be that sort of pressure on them, especially with the expectation, Preston was still stuttering under Frankie McAvoy at that point. So there was that sort of expectation on Rovers to probably take the 3 points. And then we had the curveball come in, very shortly before kick-off with the absolutely shocking conditions that there was there that day. And just sort of the state of the pitch, just you felt it played into Preston's hands in the fact that it really meant Rovers couldn't get the ball down and play that sort of quick flowing football off the ground that they seem to like to play. So that put them under pressure. And the fact that they were able to sort of really cope with that and come up with the one moment of quality in the game with the Rita Caddis brilliant cross, stunning header from Brereton to win it, that was massive. And then to hang on, so to cope with that pressure and cope with the sort of changing conditions at such short notice. Tony Mowbray even said about almost having to rip up his game plan just in the hours before that game. Just really the fact that they were able to come out with 3 points from such a set of circumstances is another really big result for them, I think.
Yeah, it's often a sign of a good team where, you don't always play your best football, but you manage to grind out a result like that. And that definitely seems like a game whereby Tony Mowbray, wasn't able to deploy his main plan, like you say, and had to play a different style of football to win the game for Rovers. Right, let's take a little look at the Blackburn Rovers squad and the team that Tony Mowbray has been putting out of late next. So I think it's fair to say Blackburn's team has been pretty consistent over the last few weeks. Mowbray often deploying a 3-4-1-2 formation. Let's first of all touch on that back three that we've seen perform consistently over the last few weeks. Darragh Lenihan, Scott Wharton, and Jan-Paul Van Heck. What have you made of them three as a trio? I think it's fair to say Van Heck perhaps started a little bit slowly, but he's really, really come to the fore now and is arguably one of your most important defenders right now. Let's touch on them three as a trio. What have you made of them so far?
I think they've been brilliant. I mean, I'll be honest, sort of the back three to begin with, I was far from convinced of. I think the first two games that Rovers employed that system, they threw away a 2-0 lead to draw 2-2 at home to Coventry, and then there was a 1-0 defeat at QPR. So I think at that point there might have been a few concerns about maybe continuing with that system, but credit to Mowbray again, he's persevered and it's paid off, and those three have been a big part of that. I mean, Scott Wharton, since his return from nearly a year out of injury, has just been phenomenal in terms of, you're never sure how a player is going to settle back in after so long out, but he's really slotted in seamlessly. Darragh Lenihan, again, as captain, has really, especially this season, come to the fore as a leader of this side. And, I've always been a big fan of him. I think there has in the past sort of been some concerns about the odd moment of, lapse of concentration or whatever that's proved costly, but you don't see any of that with him at the minute. And he's just, you only need to look at Rovers' results with and without him to see how important he is to this side. And that's why, with his contract expiring, it's so important that they try and get that deal done, and why, even if it does mean they'll risk losing him for free in the summer, they keep hold of him for the rest of this season for this promotion push. And as you say there, I mean, I think Jan-Paul Van Heck, huge credit to him. It was a slow start, obviously, as we mentioned there, the red card against Fulham in he'd only made a handful of appearances for Rovers at that time, and it was a complete moment of madness for him. Let's not get away from that with the karate kick to Harry Wilson's head. It was a really dangerous move, and at that point, he could have let his focus and his confidence be knocked, but he didn't, and he's sort of really come through that. He's become such a key figure in that back line with his sort of presence, his ability in the air. He seems to win everything. There's certainly been games where I've turned to someone and said he has got to everything tonight. And I think as well, he's a lone player from Brighton. This to him could be a one-off season at Rovers, and yet when you look at his celebrations for some of the goals that Rovers are scoring, the passion that he's showing, it just comes through so much, and that to a sort of fan base as well is going to make him so popular the fact that he clearly cares about what's going on here. So yeah, he's been incredible as well. And I mean, it's a huge credit to those three that Tony Mowbray has said sort of recently. He thinks Daniel Ayal is the best centre back in this division, and he can't justify dropping one of those three to put him into the side.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a really stellar performance from that trio in particular. I think a lot's been spoken about Blackburn's balance in their side right now. There seems to be a really nice balance from back to front in that Blackburn Rovers squad. Let's just briefly touch on the two wing backs that Mowbray's often deploying at the moment. We see Harry Pickering and Ryan Nyambe down either flank from wing back. Just how impressed have you been with them two?
I'm very impressed. I mean, Ryan Nyambe is one who, I mean, he's another who he looks like, you know, it's a bit of an uncertain future he's facing at Ewood Park with his contract. He's another one that's coming to an end this summer. And obviously there's the talk about the potential imminent arrival of Deovasio Zefuk, hope I've got that right, from Hertha Berlin in the potential in the next sort of couple of weeks, which hopefully will get done, because obviously it's going to put pressure on Nyambe, but regardless, he does need some cover and competition in that position. But, you know, take all that away, and I think Nyambe, for me, over the past few years, it's been a privilege to really watch the way he's improved for this side. I mean, I remember back in the season when Rovers were in League One and he was just sort of coming through into that team. Nyambe was always the one that perhaps wasn't quite as sure on, whereas at that level, everyone else looked very solid. Whereas now, for me, he's developed so much from that and just become such a reliable option on that right-hand side for Rovers. I don't maybe think he gets quite the credit he deserves for his attacking abilities, which Mowbray seems to like to put an emphasis on. And defensively, it's really, I think, quite rare to see any sort of winger get the better of him down that side. So, I mean, I've loved watching that, the way that he's come on from his early days to where he is now. So for me, that would make it a great shame if he was to sort of move on from the club anytime soon. As for Pickering, obviously, he was one who came in the summer, and there was a lot of pressure on him, really, coming up from not just with coming up from a League One side in Crewe, but also, you know, that left back position has been one where there's been sort of a lack of consistency or certainty around a solid option in that position for Rovers for quite some time. And now he has really come in. He's made it his own going forward. He's brilliant. He's already at that point where I think people want Nyambe to really be, in terms of he is already scoring the goals and providing the assists. Defensively as well, he's solid. He's coped really well with a lot of challenges from players who are more established than at this level than he is, and he's really, you know, deserves a lot of the credit he's getting for what he's doing in that position. And it's now going to be a bit of a tough run over the next few weeks for Rovers to sort of cope without him, with his injuries and that he's picked up, and that sort of puts a lot of pressure on Taylor Doon, another sort of summer signing. He's coming from League One. He looks the most likely to fill that role now, and it's going to be interesting to see how he's coped. But to be fair, from sort of the bits I have seen of him this season so far, I do have faith that he will be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Just touching on the central midfield areas then at Blackburn right now. We see Joe Rothwell and Lewis Travis often be deployed in that kind of midfield area. I feel they complement each other quite well. We know Joe Rothwell likes to be quite adventurous with his dribbling, moving forward, progressing up the pitch, making things happen in more advanced areas. Whereas Lewis Travis perhaps does the dirty work a little bit better. You know, sweeps up, distributes the ball well to the wide men. What have you made of them two in the kind of midfield over the last few matches and weeks?
I think they've been really good. I mean, Joe Rothwell, there's always been sort of, ever since he arrived at Rovers in the summer after the League One promotion, it's been clear that the talent's been there, and they've just really been lacking a consistent end product. And this season, we really have got that from him. I think 2 goals, 7 assists now already this season. So he's really now adding that sort of final ball or that final finish to his repertoire, and that's really the last thing that Rovers needed from him, for him to be one of the most dangerous midfielders in the division in an attacking sense. And it's just a sort of a shame for them again that it's sort of coming at a point where his contract with the club is drawing to an end. And then, as you say, Travis, by contrast, he's that one who will get stuck in, he'll do the dirty work. You know, he perhaps, certainly at the minute, doesn't get the same sort of attention that, say, Joe Rothwell and John Buckley, who was another who we might come on to, has been brilliant for Rovers this season, and they rightly deserve all the plaudits they get because they are sort of sensational assets for Rovers from an attacking sense. But Travis's defensive work perhaps doesn't get noticed as much as it should, because he is one who really does put himself about so well for this club, and it's great to see that from an academy product who's sort of worked his way up through the ranks. Another one who perhaps like Nyambe had to have endure a bit of a baptism of fire. There was talk of loan moves before he really broke into the first team. They never materialised, and yet here he is still going on strong and now looking undroppable from this team. So again, another one you've got to give a lot of credit to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on John Buckley now. When kind of EFL fans perhaps watch Blackburn Rovers, naturally Ben Brereton Diaz is the first name that springs to mind, given his phenomenal season so far. John Buckley perhaps very much underrated, going under the radar this season, but consistently producing some really good returns in terms of assists and goals. We saw him provide 2 assists, didn't we, in Blackburn's previous game against Barnsley before the Huddersfield game. A really good performance from him there. Toby, for any Black fan who's not watched John Buckley, just tell me what he's like, what he offers, and how important he is to this Rovers side, because he sits just behind the front two, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's become a massive part of this team this season, especially. Similarly to sort of Lewis Travis and potentially Nyambe, when he came through, he was one that perhaps there was you felt he could really have benefited from a loan move. I think Buckley in particular out of those 3 because of his physicality. I think I remember one game. I think it must have been about December 2019. It was a 2-1 defeat at Huddersfield, and he got a good run in that game. But any time he seemed to get possession, he was being knocked off the ball. And at that point, you're thinking that this has sort of been costly for us. We need to get this kid out on loan and really sort of bulk him up somewhat, and so he can hold his own at this level in the future. And that's another one. It never happened. And he had to do that on the job at Rovers themselves, and he acquitted himself so well to that. And to look at him now, you still wouldn't think of him as the most physical player at all. But, the way he's willing to chase back and get his tackles in and win possession back for Rovers, it sort of perhaps doesn't get the credit it deserves in comparison to his attacking abilities, which, as you say, that the quality of his through balls is absolutely sensational, and he's producing them so consistently right now. And again, there was maybe 1 or 2 eyebrows raised when he got a new long-term contract back in about February, and you may be sort of thinking at that time, is that really what Rovers needed to be prioritising? But now, when he's producing performances like this, and potentially going to start attracting that interest from elsewhere, because he certainly deserves to be, that really is starting to look like a brilliant piece of business to get that done at the time they did.
Yeah, he's definitely come on leaps and bounds this season for sure. Again, he's only 22 as well, isn't he? So much time for him to develop as a player. Right, we can't not talk about Blackburn Rovers and not talk about Ben Brereton Diaz, the star of the show at Ewood Park this season. 20 league goals the Chilean international has scored now for Rovers this season. He's been a major contributor to Blackburn's success this season. There's no denying it. Toby, just how important is he? I know it's a silly question, but just how important is he to Blackburn Rovers and their chances of promotion this season? Because transfer rumours are still swirling. We're in the midst of the January transfer window. They are still swirling around. Barcelona and Real Madrid, the latest clubs to be linked with a player, as per a few Spanish outlets. Just how important is he? And are you hopeful he's going to remain at Ewood Park in this window?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely massive. That source of goals that he provides. As we say, it's 20 already this season. To be fair, I don't think anyone saw that coming. That's more than he scored in the rest of his club career combined. So that shows just how good a vein of form he is in at the minute. And I think you look at the rest of this side. No other players scored more than 5 league goals for Blackburn this season. Admittedly, that might be different had Sam Gallagher not been out for so long through injury, but nevertheless, that sort of highlights the importance of Brereton to this side in terms of the goals he's getting. Yeah, I mean, with that in mind, I think not just the goals, but also the sort of the message it sends out if Rovers do keep him this summer, this January, sorry, to even just within the rest of the squad. It keeps their heads up. It shows them we are serious about this promotion push. We are backing you by keeping hold of our top scorer, our main man. And that will obviously lift the side. And to be honest, I'd be really surprised if Rovers do let Brereton Diaz go this month, because I think they've got the option to extend his contract by a further 12 months, which takes him to the end of next season. And at that point, we look at the precedent that they set with Adam Armstrong last summer when he was in the final 12 months of his deal, and they still managed to get 15 million reportedly from Southampton for him. And I think you look at Brereton Diaz now, he is on track to score a lot more goals this season than Armstrong did last year. That puts extra money onto his price tag. He's a full-time international with Chile, which Armstrong wasn't. I think the sort of unique nature of the Brereton Diaz story as well sort of offers up another sort of branch of opportunities for clubs in terms of the merchandising aspect, which obviously adds to their sort of profitable opportunities in terms of him in particular. So again, that makes him more valuable. There's the fact that he's actually 2 years younger than Armstrong still at the minute. So you've got the chance of, he could be an asset to you for a bit longer. And also in terms of a sell-on potential, he's one that clubs themselves could make a profit on in terms of a transfer sale in the future for more. And then furthermore, I mean, Armstrong, when he went, there was a sort of a 40% sell-on clause due to Newcastle in that deal. Whereas Forest, I think there is one, but I'd be amazed if it was such a high percentage of that one. So that as well should ensure that Blackburn would get a lot more money for Brereton Diaz in the summer than they did for Armstrong last year. And when you consider all that, it's got to be worth taking the risk when they know they could still receive that sort of windfall for him in a few months' time, regardless of whether they go up or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a key player for Tony Mowbray and Blackburn's promotion push this season. Just a reminder to anyone watching, any Blackburn fans watching, get yourself in the comments. Do you think automatic promotion is a genuine possibility for Rovers this season? Please do let us know. Right, so let's just touch on one more player then we haven't spoken about yet, and that's Rita Caddis. He's really come to the fore, hasn't he, in the last few weeks, starting consistently and really showing the quality he possesses, obviously on loan from Brighton and Hove Albion. Toby, have you been impressed with what you've seen from Caddis? Because he's been playing almost quite centrally, hasn't he, alongside Ben Brereton?
Yeah, I've been really impressed. I mean, I think back to even on his debut back in September, he came off the bench and during the 2-0 win over Hull City, and even at that point, you sort of looked at him and thought, "Wow, this kid is good." And that sort of the introduction of him and Dan Butterworth in that match with Hull, it really turned the game. It gave Rovers a spark that allowed them to go on and get those 2 goals in quick succession that sort of gave them the 3 points. And as you say, since then he's really stepped up. He's become a key figure for this side, really, in the absence of, as we mentioned, Sam Gallagher with his injuries. And Caddis filled that role brilliantly. I mean, his turn of feet is incredible. The pace he's got in terms of running with the ball at his feet is a massive threat for defences. I do think there's maybe on occasion, still that maybe issue about his decision making. Does he pass when he should shoot? Does he shoot when he should pass? But it's got to be remembered that he's still not even made 20 first-team appearances in his career. He's still only young. So that's something that is inevitably going to come with that experience. He will learn, about that sort of decision-making process. And once he adds that into what he's already got to his game, he's going to be a really good player for someone. And I mean, Rovers fans, obviously he's on loan, but they'll be desperate to see that be them with some sort of permanent move, although I'm sure that having seen what he can do this season, Brighton aren't going to let him go easily.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Blackburn have had some success with Premier League loanees over the last few seasons, and Cadra looks to be the next one on that sort of line. Let's look at the overall prospects then for Blackburn Rovers next. So, as stated numerous times on this show, Blackburn Rovers currently sit in third position in the Sky Bet Championship table, 2 points off Fulham, who occupy second position, and 3 points off AFC Bournemouth, who sit top of the league right now. You've got a nice little cushion on West Bromwich Albion below you, a 4-point cushion on them, which is always nice to have at this stage of the season. Let's talk about the challenges then for automatic promotion this season. We did a show a few weeks ago on Football League World TV, asking the question, can anyone stop AFC Bournemouth and Fulham this season? At that point, there was a gap of around 9 points between them two and third place. That gap has obviously kind of lessened given their dodgy run of form of late. Toby, let's ask the ultimate question then. Do you think automatic promotion is a genuine possibility for Rovers this season?
I think they've got to view it as one. With the position they're in now, obviously, they've had that taste of being in the top two, albeit courtesy to some extent of Fulham's games in hand. But nevertheless, when you put yourself in that position at this stage of the season, you have to be considered contenders right now. I always sort of said for a good few months that if Rovers could get to January sort of within touching distance of the playoffs and then do some good business in January in terms of getting that extra strength in depth up and keeping hold of their key players, then they would have a shot at the top six. And obviously they've gone far beyond that in terms of doing the first half of that equation by putting themselves in this position. And so obviously now there's going to be a lot on the what business they can do in January in terms of players coming in. But I think, as we say, when they're in that position, if they weren't to mount a sort of promotion push from this stage, when you look at what teams in the sort of position they are in now have done, it would be quite disappointing for Rovers if they weren't to stay the course for the rest of the season. Don't get me wrong, it's been a brilliant effort for them so far this season, and obviously they've exceeded expectations. So you couldn't really put it down as a failure if they were perhaps to maybe drift away into mid-table because they're so far ahead of where they should be. But again, you'd really feel like this was a big opportunity missed if they weren't to sort of stay the course with at least within touching distance of the top two this season.
Yeah, like you say, they put themselves in a fantastic position, haven't they, to really, really push for the top two this season. Well, we've got just under half the season left in the Sky Bet Championship, so plenty more games to come. Blackburn Rovers fans, as ever, please do get yourselves in the comments whether you're watching this on repeat on YouTube. We'd love to get your thoughts. Do you think Blackburn Rovers can get in the top two this season? Toby, thanks so much for joining me this morning and talking all things Rovers. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks everyone for watching. We've got one more show for you later on here on Football League World TV. We're going to be talking about Sutton United down in League Two. Matty Gray's side having a fantastic season in their first stint in the EFL. Can they deliver successive promotions? George Douglas will be leading that debate alongside Marcus Ali. Well worth a watch at 2 o'clock. But once again, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch up soon.